Hey, everybody. Yes, welcome back to the Paid Search Podcast. My name is Jason Rothman. As always, I'm joined by the great Chris Schaefer. Chris, how's it going today, buddy?
I'm good, Jason. Good to see you. Just adjusting my camera a little bit so I am just a few inches taller than you because I want to establish dominance. I'm here. I'm good now. A couple inches taller, at least vertically, on the screen. I'm bigger and stronger and taller. So yeah, glad to be here. And Jason, it's the kids. My kids are home. My kids are school age children. They're home, so no messing around today, Jason, because the kids could come busting in the door any minute, ruin everything. They're not at school. It's very unpredictable time. It's a very scary time right now at the Schaefer home.
Wow. Well, good. You sound busy. You sound like you're ready to get into it.
Yeah.
Is the flame still burning for me?
Mm.
Is the passion still there? Are you still having fun, Chris? I'm having fun with you. I look forward to these recordings.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, there's only one thing that I do 8 hours every day, 5 days a week, and it's Google Ads. And I talk to people about Google Ads, right? People that don't care. I talk to other people, and they don't care about Google Ads. They just care about their Google Ads. You're the only person that I can talk to.
Where you learn.
Where I learn. But I can talk about what I do, and you have the same fire passion that I do.
Yeah.
Anyone else I talk to doesn't care. If I'm going to talk about click-through rate with someone in my life, who else is going to care but Jason Rothman? No one cares.
Nobody cares, Chris.
I'm glad to be here because no one cares.
Well, good. Well, I care about you, and I care about your click-through rates, and I care about our audience's click-through rates and raising them.
Yeah.
If that's the right thing to do, which we think it is, but we'll talk about that. How to improve your click-through rate in Google Ads. That's what. Oh, we're not even going to edit it, but I just have to say it cleaner. That is so
say it. Yeah.
Horrible. How to improve your click-through rate in Google Ads.
There we go. Professional.
That's what we're going to be talking about because we get a lot of questions about click-through rate. I think my wife, we're talking about our home situation. She just pulled out of the driveway and went up on the curb.
Oh.
So good job, babe. But how to improve your click-through rate in Google Ads, Chris? It's a question we get from clients, but I think at least for me, click-through rate is extremely important. I subconsciously think about it all the time. It plays a role in many, many decisions, but it's not something that's like totally top of mind because it's so fundamental. It's kind of like breathing. Like I don't think about breathing. I'm just breathing.
Now I am.
I'm exercising. Now we are. But generally it's something that's like oxygen. It's there. So I'm trying to optimize for click-through rate and get a high click-through rate all the time. And I look at that click-through rate and make decisions based on it. But it's not something I kind of bring to top of mind consciously very often because it's so fundamental and it's so central to everything. But for people who who aren't in Google Ads like we are day to day, I think they do kind of look at click-through rate and actually go, click-through rate, how do I get it higher? What is it? More often. So that's why I wanted to discuss it with you. And we've got a fun episode planned all around click-through rate. And we will get into that. But if you want to talk about raising levels of Google Ads performance, I'll hand it over to Chris right now.
Yeah. I want to tell you guys about our one and only tool to get more done and to, as Jason said, raise the level of competency that you have in Google Ads. It is with Optio. If you haven't heard of Optio before, it is the only software out there that is exclusively designed to help you get more done, get it done faster in Google Ads. This tool takes your brain and enhances what it can do in the time that you have to get it done. So you have one account to manage, you have 15 accounts, you have 100 accounts, you have an entire agency with hundreds of accounts. This tool scales to your capability. You can get more done. And I talk about it all the time. I like to break it down and tell you one favorite thing that I have every now and then. Here's another favorite thing that I have in Google Ads. It's a Google Ads alert system. It pops up an alert and tells you, hey, there's a broken link. Hey, you just hit a new record CPA goal, or it's really bad, good, bad. There's all kinds of things that it can do, and it tells you your overspend budget. You have a new report ready or something like that. These are critical things that you might miss if you don't have your nose in Google Ads constantly. And the truth is, no one does, right? The best Google Ads manager, who we know who that is, still has to sleep. And this system never sleeps. Wonderful tool. You can try it for free for 8 weeks, 2 months for free at optio.com/PSP. If you want that 8-week free trial, you only get it at that URL. We thank them for their sponsorship and keeping us going year after year.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So let's talk about what is click-through rate in Google Ads. So, Chris, I'm just going to ask you the question.
Okay.
What is, you're at CrossFit, you're at a dinner party, you're at a cocktail hour, and someone just walks up to you and you just got the look of a Google Ads manager all over you. You just smell like one. And they're like, hey, what is click-through rate in Google Ads? How do you answer that question?
Okay, first of all, I say, how much did Jason pay you to ask me that and make me feel validated about my career? But the next thing I say is, for me, just before we get into the basics of what it means beyond just the definition, it is just how many people saw something and how many people took action on it. It's just a percentage number. So higher means more interactivity. Less numbers mean a lot less interactivity between the scene of an ad, visually on the screen, the ad being loaded, and then the ad literally being clicked or interacted on in some way. CTR, click-through rate. And quick note, a lot of people write click-through rate as 3 words. Jason, I know you would never do that. Click-through rate is actually just 2 words. Click-through is 1 word, and then rate is a separate word.
No
2
hyphens.
words. No hyphens, no spaces, click-through rate.
Okay, good. So official Google Ads definition, and like you're saying, yes, Chris, it is. How many times, I'll walk it back from did people see your ad to just impressions. How many times did it show up?
Sure.
Versus how many times it got clicked on. How many times it got clicked on is the numerator. The denominator is your impressions. If you had 5 people clicked on your ad or you got 5 clicks over 100 impressions, you have a 5% click-through rate. Officially from Google, a ratio showing how, and we'll have a link in the description, a ratio showing how often people who see your ad or free product listings end up clicking it. Click-through rate can be used to gauge how well your keywords and ads and free listings are performing. And then they go on to speak about it's the number of clicks divided by the number of impressions. Each of your ads, listings, keywords, and I would also add on ad groups and campaigns, have their own click-through rates that you can see in your account. You can also see them pretty much all the time, whether you look at audiences or devices and demographics, stuff like that. But Chris, just to preview things here, in their official definition, they say a high click-through rate is a good indication that users find your ads and listings helpful and relevant. Click-through rate also contributes to your keywords expected click-through rate, which is a component of ad rank. Note that a good, which we'll get into, but the language is very interesting. I just want to preview the language. It's a good indication that users find your ads helpful and relevant. It contributes to your expected click-through rate. And then a good CTR is relative to what you're advertising and on which network. So it's definitely industry tied to the industry and the network. And then you can use your click-through rate to gauge which ads, listings, and keywords are successful. And so it is a way to kind of monitor your performance, which we'll be getting into. But Chris, I think that's without getting into, is it good? Is it bad? Does it need to be higher, lower? How to get it higher? Without getting into all of that yet, I think that's a pretty good general definition of click-through rate.
Yeah. I would say that click-through rate is one of the most basic measurements of healthy, unhealthy, because you don't have to have conversions. There's nothing to set up. There's nothing that you need to do beyond just running the ad, because every Google Ads campaign has clicks and impressions. So therefore, every Google Ads campaign has click-through rate. So I would say it is very much a standard method, because you can't look at the CPC and determine success, right?
Not on its own, no.
No, not on its
Or
own.
less so on its own than click-through rate on its own.
And you can't look at position of the ads and determine success. I mean, from the campaign view, excluding conversions and return on ad spend, if I could only look at those primary metrics, I would say I might go straight to CTR to at least have a guess about how well something's performing.
Well, how important is it to us, and like how much does click-through rate determine success? If you're thinking about, and by the way, for the most part, we're talking about search campaigns versus YouTube or display or remarketing.
Good point.
So you want to keep it to search today? We'll keep it to search.
Yeah, because YouTube
and remarketing, they're totally different click-through rates.
YouTube is really deceptive because it has to do, it does have a click-through rate, but it's going to be based on how many people clicked on the ad, not the view of the ad.
Yeah.
So it's
which obviously are going to be a lot less.
Yeah.
So we're talking about search, but if you're asking like how much does it determine success or how important is it to us, I think it's my mind goes to what is important in a search campaign. The number one thing I always go to are search terms. I think that's the most important thing. I think you could make an argument for location as well, because if your search terms are in the wrong location, you're in trouble. But assuming all that setting stuff is correct, what are the most important gauges of success or things that you can control to be successful? Number one is search terms. And then what is a sign of success? The next thing that you can point to, other than like an amazing search term list or report. If you don't have all conversion tracking in place, if you're not tracking all your conversions, leads, calls, everything, and you're not super confident about that tracking, then I would put conversion tracking maybe above click-through rate. But if you don't have perfect conversion tracking, which maybe no one ever does, because there's always things that fall through or things that can't be tracked, but there's a lot of advertisers that don't get all their conversion tracking in place. And if you don't have it all in place after search terms, I think it's fair to say click-through rate is the next best gauge of success, or the next place you should look.
What about this? Where would you place click-through rate and, let's say, analytical data, as in bounce rate, time on site, page per session, pages viewed per session? What about that? I would say that click-through rate might actually be a tick over that.
Yeah, I agree.
Because bounce rate and time on site is never an indicator of success, because some businesses just have one page and they just want a phone call.
Some businesses are going to lend themselves towards a huge bounce rate if they have just a squeeze page, a landing page, but a really good one that gets a lot of conversions for them. But a lot of people who don't convert are going to be bounces. So yeah, if we're talking, I'll put it this way. I need a click-through rate on every single campaign. I need to look at my click-through rate, every keyword, all that kind of stuff. I don't need Google Analytics data imported into the Google Ads account as soft conversion data, like how the time on site. It helps, but I don't need it. Nice. I need a click-through rate to kind of tell me where I'm at. So how important is it? It's like very important. It's one of the top 2-3 most important parts of a Google Ads campaign. Shocking, because we don't discuss it much, because it's so fundamental, but it is that important. I think it's fair. And then how much does click-through rate determine success, or how much are you able to judge the success of a campaign based on click-through rate alone? So Chris, walk us through a couple scenarios. Scenario A, you don't have any conversion data, and or you have incomplete conversion data.
Okay.
Just incomplete. Scenario B, you have complete conversion data. You're able to see all the leads, all the sales. How much does click-through rate matter to you or help you make a campaign successful? How much do you optimize off of it? So or incomplete conversion data and then complete conversion data. So why don't you walk me through how you look at click-through rate in those two scenarios, starting with incomplete conversion data?
Yeah. So as far as the situation where an account has incomplete or maybe as far as none on the conversion data, I would say that click-through rate definitely becomes more valuable in comparison to someone who has full conversion data. So I would say that the importance of click-through rate is variable based on the amount of conversion data that I have. So with no conversion data or with incomplete conversion data, I can at least judge at the campaign level, maybe even the ad group level, the relevance of the traffic quality and how how much people are reacting to that, how much these ads are hitting exactly what these people are looking for. So for example, if I look into an account and I see a 0.5 conversion rate, let's say, and I also see a 1% or a 0.5 click-through rate, I am going to feel much more uncomfortable about that 0.5 click-through rate along with that 0.5 conversion rate than I would with an account that is, let's say, 10%, 15% conversion rate and a 0.5 click-through rate. Because when I see two of those paired together, I am much more uncomfortable with too low click-through rate and a very low conversion rate versus high conversion rate, low click-through rate. And to me, it seems like it's an early warning for something that's wrong internally in the account, really. That's what it tells me.
Yeah, so if you've got a campaign, it's been running for a month, it's on search, and maybe you're looking at it as an audit or something, and the conversion data is incomplete, so you're not really looking at the conversion data. Then you look at the search terms, but even before you get to the search terms, you're going to see the click-through rate on the campaign page. If you see... What's a number that kind of makes you think like, where do you get worried? Like
1%.
If you see,
I mean, like,
so I used to be at 1%, but like these days with responsive ads, maybe it's just I see good campaigns all the time because I'm looking at my campaigns, but 1% is kind of more. That used to be my number. I'm thinking more like 3% is my number now. So like, if I see below 1%, I'm like, yeah, obviously something's totally wrong, or we're doing a super low bid strategy.
Okay.
If I see 1 to 3%, I think there's probably a ton of room for improvement here. If I see 5 to 7%, I'm like, they might be rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
If I see 12%, I'm thinking it's either brand keywords driving it up, or I'm going to go F myself because things are already in good shape. Those are my numbers, and those are my descriptions. Yeah.
It's like I could either work on this or go do something else with my time. Okay. So I'm glad you said that because people want to know what a good click-through rate is. And I definitely think that there's a scale. And what people don't realize is, they think I need to keep improving my click-through rate. There is absolutely a very low click-through rate that is in the red, and also, just like you said, a very low or a very high click-through rate could also be in the red. So it's a scaled system. It's like red to yellow to green to yellow to red. And you say, well, okay, how could a high click-through rate be a bad thing? Because you always you could get better, expected click-through rates, you could get better quality score, more people are seeing your ad and clicking on it. Isn't that an indication of healthy ads? The truth is, I could artificially boost my click-through rate. The easy way is to throw brand keywords in, right? But that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that's easy. What I'm talking about is when you stop qualifying what your ads are actually trying to sell, and you start pitching the click as how people should interact. So in other words, if someone's looking for a plumber, just saying, we're available, we'll be there in 20 minutes, and we cost, it'll cost $50,
And we call us 24/7 emergency.
Yeah, you can call us 24.
You may not even be open all the time.
yeah, these incentives will push the click-through rate up, but in the end, you're damaging your account because you will get poor conversion rates. You'll have
Interesting.
disappointed people,
Wow.
and these kind of things will push the CTR over the edge, and that's actually a bad thing. So I'm more comfortable with a, let's say, 5 to 7% click-through
On
rate.
search campaigns, and it's hard because the industry is dependent.
It's
It's also
so, yeah,
dependent on your
yeah.
bidding strategy, and if you have to come in there with a super low bid to compete, and then you're running nationally, sometimes you're going to be well under 5 to 7, and things could still be great.
Still be great, yeah.
Also, if Chris and I have complete conversion data, we're prioritizing that. But yeah, I would agree with you. Generally, I'm going to maybe open it a little to 3 to 7 instead of 5 to 7 is kind of like your area
Okay,
of
sure.
green. Below 1 is
Green,
probably
yeah.
red. And again, it's not an all the time thing, but this is an indication thing. We're going to look at something. Below 1 red, 1 to 3 yellow, probably could be improved. 3 to 7, always things could be
Yeah.
improved, but probably in decent shape. 7 to 12 to 25.
I'm
What's
starting to
going
get,
on? Is
yeah.
it brand keywords coming through either as keywords or as search terms? Is it ad copy that's maybe not going to be delivering what people actually experience? Or is it just an industry that has a very motivated customer base? I can't give the industry, but I'm working with a new client this week in a new industry to me. And, nothing special. We're just running kind of normal keywords. They've been running normal keywords. We're making things better. Looking at it now, Chris, last 30 days, and this is all search, 12% click-through rate. Again, absolute top position here might be around the 70% range. So it's not like they're bidding crazy high. Dude, man, bro, 12%. Because it's got a very motivated search user base that doesn't care about organic versus ads, doesn't care about number 1 versus number 2. They're kind of looking at all people for getting quotes and options. And when they find someone that gives them what they want, they're very motivated to go work with that company. High click-through rate.
Yeah. I think that you're right. I should probably back off that having a 12, 15% click-through rate is a bad thing, because there are a lot of instances when that would be a regular occurrence for someone to have a very high CTR. There could be a lot of industries that people are going to be very interested if they find that niche. If you provide a niche and you fill a niche for something that is not necessarily the most common thing that people look for, but when they do search that way and they see your ad, they think, oh, that's exactly what I was looking for. Yeah, that's exactly it. And what that tells you is that you've dialed your keywords in right, and therefore you're going to have a high CTR. So it's very much a healthy thing. But Jason, it's not something by accident. It's not going to happen by accident. It has to be engineered. It has to be optimized and worked towards.
And there's a lot of things that go into click-through rate that maybe are outside our realm of control or even understanding. So, number 1, ad copy. Like sometimes really, really good ad copy could connect with the customer base that even as a business owner, you want to understand why, at least initially. And then there's also something with brand where if someone has done advertising in a market for 25 years on TV and they're running heavy remarketing and display ads, they're probably going to get a boost on their search campaigns. And then competition also plays a role. Like if you're just in a town with, say not a lot of moving companies and there's only usually 2 ads at the top, that mover's probably going to have a higher click-through rate on average than a mover in a very competitive market where there's always 4 ads. So it's very dependent on the situation.
And I mean, just to give an example of industry, if you have an ad for puppies that you're selling versus life insurance, the nature and the urgency of one industry, one type of service, one type of product is going to be so much more desirable because of the instant gratification that they're going to get. People are not going to be quick to say, oh, look at this life insurance ad and click on it. Whereas if you have brand new little Cocker Spaniel puppies that people are looking for, and you have an ad for that, cute puppies available now, only two left, that you're selling, then obviously that's going to be a very high click-through rate. It has to do with the the value and the time frame, and what they're going to get out of it. So there's a lot of factors.
Yeah, and also just like even in the moving company specifically industry, you've got like local movers where someone does a search and yes, they're going to get quotes a lot of the time from multiple movers. So the average person who clicks on 3 ads at the top is going to be a certain number. Like maybe it's 30% of people, maybe it's 10% of people, but a certain number of them will click on multiple ads and also multiple organic listings to get multiple quotes. But that number rises higher when you're talking about long distance state to state moving quotes, where all the advertisers are talking about like get a free quote. And it's just people, it's a bigger move, it's a bigger deal. So they're at a much higher rate are going to be getting multiple quotes. At a much higher rate, they're going to be clicking on multiple ads and getting quotes from multiple people and multiple organic listings. You're probably going to see a higher click-through rate in that portion of the moving industry than the day-to-day move. So
That's true.
in terms of answering what is a good click-through rate, I think we gave our ranges.
Yeah.
But they're just ranges, and we just have to qualify everything with click-through rate is advertiser specific, industry specific, location specific, and then like your strategy specific. Like, are you going for a small budget in a huge market and you're trying to show up really low? Like, it's very specific to you as an advertiser, but we did give our ranges.
And Jason, there's one more factor that we have to include that we didn't talk about, and it's the pairing of position and click-through rate. I am not going to be as suspicious of a 1% or 2% click-through rate if you are never hitting first position, you have 0% absolute top, right? Yeah. And you have only 50% above organic. I am not suspicious of a 1% click-through rate or lower because that makes sense. But when I pair an ad that's showing 50% in absolute top, so 50% of the time they are in top position, and then 95% of the time they're above organic, so they're very visible. And then I see a 2% or 3% or lower click-through rate, immediately I'm suspicious. So metrics and position also factors into the that red and yellow kind of number.
Yeah, there's heat maps out there, and it's also common sense. But like the higher your ad position is, in general, the higher your click-through rate will be. Now, there could be in a silo, some advertiser, some city, some keyword where an advertiser in position 2 somehow gets near or close to, or maybe even better, the click-through rate of the advertiser in position 1 if the ad copy is really, really, really good for that search term, and that ad copy in that first position ad is really, really bad. But generally, the higher your ad show, the higher your click-through rate will be. And just like we're saying, all things kind of impact click-through rate, and it's situation dependent. That ad position and how strong you're bidding, that's like a huge factor of it, a huge component. And so I think it's probably safe to say I never really consider click-through rate on its own. I look at click-through rate and absolute top percentage and top percentage, like you're saying, the position data. And I almost judge click-through rate alongside the position data. And it's kind of like a handicap in golf. Like, as I understand it, someone has a 12 handicap and then someone has a 5 handicap, whatever, but it allows them to play the same game at the same time with their different skill levels. With the click-through rate, it's like, yeah, a position. If you're going for a position 1 strategy and you have a 8% or 12% click-through rate, like good. But if you're going for a show up number 1 half the time strategy as opposed to 90+% and your click-through rate is down at 5%, still good. It's very dependent on the position. But speaking about position and high click-through rates, Chris, before we take our break here, let's talk about the question. Is a high click-through rate good for quality score in Google Ads? Does having a high click-through rate help your quality score in Google Ads? What kind of information do we have to gauge that with?
Yeah, so there's a metric in Google Ads. If you're into quality score, this won't be news to you. But if you don't pay much attention to quality score, which honestly I'm in the same boat, I don't put a whole lot of weight on it. Neither does Jason. But
Do you feel the need to explain yourself on that anymore? Are you worried about
there's
people
always
hearing that,
new
or are you more like, this is the way it is, I'm not going to defend that anymore?
there's always
To,
new
to dumb
listeners.
people that I'm not going to
You
say
just-
the new listeners who business owners are dumb. I'm going to say the people who come over to this industry from other related industries that get too caught up into metrics
Right.
and think
Yeah.
they know what they're
No,
doing and are going to
I'm
shoot
gonna
for the
always say it.
stars.
I'm always gonna try and downplay people overemphasizing quality score. Just like people would overemphasize anything they can't control. I mean, that is. I'm always gonna, because I want to de-stress people and I want to help them kind of get to the reality.
But are
of what
we
they can
defending it
control.
anymore, or are we just confident enough to say, no, that's the way it is, that's what we believe in?
Oh, I'm not
that's what we
defending.
do?
No,
Okay.
I see what you're saying. No, I'm not defending. No, that's the
All
way
right,
it
then I
is.
won't defend myself either. I'll be out there with you, naked on the internet, as we say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So expected click-through rate, straight from Google's mouth in the Google Help docs, is expected click-through rate is the likelihood that your ad will be clicked when shown. Jason, that's such a simple definition, but you and I both know it's like way more complicated than that. They take in a lot of factors. But that's how they say.
That's all they're saying about it right now?
Yeah, that's what it says. How it's calculated. Quality score is calculated by expected click-through rate, which is the likelihood that your ad will be clicked when shown. That is
so. As people who've been doing the Paid Search podcast for years, and I've probably been present and actually engaged on maybe 87% of them. We all go through rough times, Chris.
Right. I've been there. I'm
I've
probably
been
at
there,
70%.
All right. Well, but the important thing is in the last 8 to 10 months, our ratio is close to 100% all the time. Yeah. And the numbers are going up. It's so funny. You think, how does a show that's been going in a super niche thing continue to grow? But like last month was near our best months ever after a multi-month dip. And it's so funny to see those dips coincide with rough times in our lives. So we just give a better product when
you do something this long. I mean, you can't always just be steady Freddy all the time.
Yeah, and if you want to give us a 5-star review, but then in your comments say really good most of the time. We're happy with that, we're looking,
which we need to get back to. We need to get people to keep rating the podcast so we can start reading them. So
yeah, the reviews have been funny lately because people are mixing them up with Q&As. And it's funny how specific.
Really?
Yeah, people. That's why I haven't been reading some of them recently because they're very specific. And I'm like, well, I don't know. But whatever you guys want to say, whatever message.
What a great idea. We should do that. We'll answer your question, your Q&A question about Google Ads if you leave a 5-star review along with the question.
Or not.
That's a great idea. Think of all the reviews.
We'll talk after the show recording is over.
Okay.
And we'll dish out punishment after the show recording is over. Right. But what we were talking about, Chris, is expected click-through rate. And the reason I was talking about our history, our past together, is because memories, who knows? But I remember, I'm telling you, I remember a day on the Paid Search podcast where we clicked the help in the account, and then it pulled up on the side of the account, and it said, it was that or the help docs or whatever, but it said expected click-through rate. And what we're talking about is a portion of quality score, expected click-through rate. It's one of the 3 major factors of quality score. It said something to the effect of, it's like you're saying, the expected likelihood that your ad will get clicked on. But it said based on your account and other accounts.
Yes.
Or
like
accounts
yours.
overall, or accounts like yours, or
industry, something like
industry,
that.
or all the accounts. And it
talked about historical factors, competitors. It went into all kinds of things. So the question is, do we believe that that's changed, or do we believe that they changed the definition?
No, I don't think that's changed. I think expected click-through rate. I think, even though it doesn't say it anymore, I think expected click-through rate is the expected click-through rate based on your account and what I'm going to call the industry. This keyword overall over time with Google. Why that makes sense to me is because Google doesn't want to, in my opinion, if I'm Google, I don't want to tax my system and introduce costs into my system to report data, to make it eligible to show up on different searches as often as other searches. If those searches, number one, don't end up getting clicked on ads a lot because they're just not ad kinds of searches. So I'll do this kind of search. Podcast definition. Maybe that has ads on it, but podcast software, that's going to have a lot more ads, and those ads are going to get clicked on a lot more. Pasta definition or define vague, the word vague, that's not going to have ads. And even if it had ads, people are not going to click on them on a super high rate at all. So I don't think they want to implement cost to their system, but I also think from a user quality experience perspective, if think about how many times you and I and our audience, how many times you all out there go to search and you don't see any ads because you're just getting information from Google. All I think about is money and family and like being a good podcast partner and health and fitness and
second,
all that.
Third,
but
fourth.
Mostly all I think about is money. I think about money a lot. And so I'm thinking about stocks and different equations. And so I'm searching all the time. What is this times that and that times this and this minus that and that plus that? I'm getting numbers. And I never get ads because it wouldn't be a good user experience because I don't need ads. And so it's not a black and white thing. It's a gray thing. Some industries are set up a 100 out of 100 for ads. Ads deliver what people exactly want. Some industries are maybe more like 50-50. Some people want ads, some people don't. And I think that impacts expected click-through rate. And I think that impacts what Google is saying you need to pay based on a lower quality score to get your ads to show up there. You want to show up there, you're going to have to pay a little something. Maybe they also use it to gauge different costs for different industries. I don't know, but it's a cap on how much you can control your quality score with click-through rate. Now, that said, isn't a high click-through rate good for quality score, Chris? Even though part of that quality score is out of our control. I mean, it says it in the definition on the click-through rate page. A high click-through rate is a good indication that users find your ad and listings helpful and relevant. This is from click-through rate definition. Click-through rate also contributes to your keyword's expected click-through rate. Yeah. So it does help quality score. It's just a question of how much. That's my view.
So I'm going to throw a question out at you, Jason. I might have proof that expected CTR, I was just thinking about this, expected click-through rate, I might have proof that it has to do with competitors and things that are not related to you, okay? And so I'm going to ask you a question, yes or no. Have you ever added a keyword to a campaign before, and within the same day or within maybe even the same hour or definitely within the first week, do you immediately see that thing go from no quality score to 1 out of 10? Bam. Before you've even started getting traffic on it, like it maybe has a few impressions, maybe doesn't even have clicks.
Yes.
Straight to 1.
I put in keywords and they get horrible quality scores very quickly, even on a whole campaign basis.
Right.
You put in a bunch of keywords for a certain industry.
And it hates all of them.
Managed IT, tough industry.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of low quality scores.
So what would that tell you about expected CTR? It would tell you that there are factors outside of the clicks that you haven't even gotten yet that would determine a poor expected CTR, and that would be the historical standing of that search on Google, just like you were talking about. People don't search this and interact. Your competitors have had bad experiences with this kind of search. Google's going to give you a bad expected CTR, therefore a bad quality score.
In agreement. I agree with you.
Okay.
I agree with you, but honestly, it does. When I see a bad quality score on an account, and it seems to be like kind of an industry thing. It's like, what did we do wrong? We have a good website, landing page experience. We have good ads, relevant ads. What's the third factor? quality score is expected click-through rate, the third major one.
Yeah.
Well, come on, we just started. You don't even know our click-through rate. Or
Right.
it's running for a while and we actually have like a 5, 6, 7% click-through rate, but we still have low quality scores. I'm like, yeah, it must be an industry thing, and the expected click-through rate must be dampened by this industry based on data, or that's just the way Google's playing things on this one, or setting the table on this one. And to be honest with you, to answer the question of, yeah, but it doesn't matter because you should always focus on raising your click-through rate to get a higher quality score. No, it does dampen enthusiasm and motivation and hope of getting the quality score up based on a high click-through rate, because you kind of think, well, no, we already have a high click-through rate. We have a bad quality score. So what I do in that situation, Chris, is I kind of leave the click-through rate thing alone if it's already good, and I focus on bids, and I go,
Yeah.
all right, this is going to be a tough industry, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have to be unprofitable. It could be profitable. They want to see a higher click-through rate. I'm going to get them a higher click-through rate. I'm going to raise those bids. And we kind of go into aggressive mode and see what absolute top 90+ percentage does to click-through rate and does to, I'm not going to say quality score, because then I stop looking at it. Like you, I don't look at it that often, but I look at the overall account performance and I go, okay, this one's it's kind of like an acceleration thing. If you are in one of those tough expected click-through rate spots, pedal to the metal is my answer. Yeah. Good search terms, good ads, good landing page. All right, what else is in our control? Bids. And they're telling us, hey, you guys want to get it going on this kind of industry, you got to bid more than you're bidding. And so we get it going. And that's kind of my answer to that. Is there anything I'm missing, Chris? Or do you sit there and play around with the ad copy for months and months?
No.
Trying to get
I don't.
10 out of 10. I don't either, because you already have good ads.
I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked that, because this is ended up turning into a quality score discussion. But you can't talk about CTR without expected CTR, and expected CTR is quality score. So,
yeah.
But yeah, you said it right there. No, if I see low quality score, and it's derived from a lot of it, is below average because of expected CTR, I don't sit there and futz with a whole bunch of stuff. Like, I'm going to put this in its own ad group and stuff like that. No, I say, is this a good keyword? Okay, I'm about to triple these bids, because obviously I'm being pressed down by, a poor quality score. So I'm going to have to double, triple my bids in order to get the rest of the way up.
All right, Chris. Well, I'm warming up my arm.
Oh, here we go.
I think you know for what. It can go unsaid, but you can listen to last week. We're going to take our little dance break, and we will be back after the break to talk about ways to improve your quality. Sorry, I'm just so warmed up.
Oh,
that's why you got to tune into YouTube.
I thought that one was for me.
That one, I deserve that one. We're going to talk about ways to improve your click-through rate.
Okay.
After the break.
Welcome back. I want to remind you about why we're here. We're here to tell you about Google Ads, but why we can afford to be here is because we have a sponsor that keeps us able to do this every week. They support. It's expensive to run a podcast, certainly with Jason. We have to pay him a lot to keep him interested. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you appreciate this show, we ask you, please check out Optio. Click on the link in the description. Try out their free trial. They're really good people. We don't like to work with weird, shady companies, and this is the kind of company that really respects the industry, and they work hard to have a good tool to provide the solutions that you need. So if you trust me, if you trust Jason, and you listen to the show because you think we're honest guys, it really is a good tool. They're not going to spam you. They're not going to call you. Try out the tool. If it doesn't work out for you, then fine. But at least try the 8 weeks for free. You're going to like it. Optio.com/PSP is the link you're looking for.
Hey, Chris, so let's talk about ways to improve your click-through rate. So we got very deep in the weeds with quality score, and we talked about, expected click-through rate. It might be outside of your account to a large extent or to a very meaningful extent. But at the end of the day, that is just the way it is, and you're still trying to improve your account if you're a Google Ads advertiser. So, but before we get into ways to improve your your ways to improve your click-through rate. And the first thing we're going to be talking about is using your ad copy to get a higher click-through rate. I have a confession. When we made this episode, I was thinking about ways to improve your click-through rate. That makes sense. It's something obviously you would want to do. But what's very interesting is kind of what I was saying on the intro of the show. I cannot remember the last time I went into an account and said, I want to get this click-through rate from 5 to 7. I want to improve this click-through rate. It's more
point.
like I want better search terms. I want better ad copy. I think with ad copy, I am thinking about click-through rate a lot, but it's more so the things you do to improve a Google Ads account, get more conversions, get better traffic quality, get clicked on more with ads. All that stuff just by default kind of improves your click-through rate because it makes your ads more likely to show up to more relevant searches and be more helpful to people. And it makes it more likely you're going to get clicked on. Yeah. So that's the angle I'm coming at, improving click-through rate. That's the way I'm coming to it. Are you the same way where you're just improving things overall, and as a byproduct of that, click-through rate rises? Or do you actually look at click-through rate and go, no, click-through rate's too low, I need to improve click rate, and that's kind of top of mind versus other stuff? How do you approach it?
That's a great question, because you're right. I think when we were framing it out, I mean, we weren't giving ourselves enough credit for what is priority, and priority is good traffic quality. And if you focus on good traffic quality, the click-through rate will follow. So very much, if I see a low click-through rate, I don't think, well, let me go into the ad copy and see what I can do to try and bring this up. No, immediately what I'm going to go check is I'm going to go check the search terms, and then I'm going to check the headlines of my ad.
Headlines.
And I'm going to see, are my headlines speaking to the same level of knowledge? Are my headlines using the same language as the people that are searching? Are my headlines enticing people that would have this kind of interest to click on my ad? That's what I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about, hey, did I use enough mentions of our coupon code for 10% off? Because who the frick cares about 10%, I mean, that kind of thing is not going to be beneficial if people are not actually looking for what I'm selling. A 10% coupon is not going to make a big deal. But what will make a big deal is if they're searching for XYZ, and I literally sell XYZ, and I tell them in the ad, and then I mention what my benefits and features and what they can get by clicking on this ad and what they'll see, they'll click on it.
Yeah. Now, in terms of improving that click-through rate through ad copy, you wanted to mention we are now within 30 days of the ability to edit or create new expanded text ads going away. That happens on July 1, as we understand it.
Yep.
The reason we bring that up is because the way you improve ad copy to get a higher click-through rate is you test out different ad copy. If obviously you got to show up on the right searches, but if we're talking about specifically how to improve your ad copy to get a higher click-through rate in Google Ads, you do that by testing ad copy and trying to find something that's going to work.
Yeah.
Now, in the expanded text ad era of Google Ads, circa 2014 to 2022, maybe, but it sounds cool to say.
RIP.
Yeah. The ability to create new or edit expand text ads is going away. So it was very easy because the ads are small, the amount of text you have to come up with.
Subtle changes. Just
subtle changes.
Change the order of the words or something like that, the headline order, all kinds of little
expanded text ads are easy to create because there's not a lot of characters across the different parts of the ad. And on top of that, it's easy to test things. Like you're saying, if you want to test a small tweak, you can test a small tweak. If you want to just test a different headline or a couple different headlines, boom, you punch them in there and you can make an ad totally different very quickly. Yeah. But now things are going into responsive ads, a lot more headlines, a lot more descriptions, and a lot more characters in each of those areas, and a lot less control over what shows up and where and how often. So it's a struggle. Can I say that on
Yeah.
the air here, Chris? Am I
It's okay.
allowed to
This
say
is a
I'm not
safe.
perfect? Am I allowed
This
to
is a
say
safe place.
I'm the absolute best Google Ads manager on the planet? I'm not even doing it for myself anymore. I'm doing it for legacy and to set a standard in the industry to stay motivated. That's what I'm doing
Yeah,
these
you can
days.
say that. You can
Okay,
say
well,
that.
I
So
said it.
humble. So humble.
Well, to make it humble, I'll say even I
Mm.
am not perfect, and figuring out how to test ad copy in the responsive ads era, not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
Because there's
Yeah.
so much space in those ads, and it's like you kind of test everything you want to test. Boom, one ad, you're done. So how do you test the second ad and then control over how much stuff shows up? And you can tell me to pin. I'm not the kind of guy that pins. I go with the flow. I go with the flow.
Unpinner. Yeah.
I'm a D-pinner.
I'll
take your pins out. So Chris, let me ask you for some peer-to-peer help here.
Okay.
Testing ads in the responsive ads era. Well, that's not a good enough answer. Think of something.
Okay.
Well, I've got some answers, but I mean, how are you approaching that? I mean, it is a thing.
Yeah. I mean, I hinted at it before, but I mean, this is really what it comes down to for me is because we're now restricted to a blend of headlines, I now have to stop looking at individual headlines and start making decisions about the theme of the headlines and what the headlines say. So I don't look at individual headlines. I look and say, okay, how many times do I just say the same word over and over again? Am I doing it so much that there's literally no variety? Mm-hmm. How many times do I use numbers? How many times do I use geographic references? How many times do I use availability mentions or call to action? These types of thematic types of, crafting the ad is what I start to look at. And then I look at the ad and I think, okay, how does this reflect in the search terms? How closely are the search terms related to the ad copy?
Okay.
And am I just robotically just saying the same thing over and over? And if I find myself doing that, I try and move away from whatever mistakes I'm making. I mean, that's the conclusion I've come to now with responsive ads. I can't do what I used to do with expanded text.
Little test here, little test there, this versus that. So you're kind of getting away from that, and you're more so just trying to improve.
Yeah. Just little.
That makes sense.
I notice that I keep saying over and over the same keyword, and instead I try a different subtle way of saying that same thing, but not just repeating the keyword. Instead of saying book now, I'll say reserve your specialty slot now, or something like that. I try different language, different things, because I mean, when if everybody has to write 15 headlines, there's going to be a lot of repetitive junk out there, and everybody's going to look the same.
That's one thing that motivates me. For people who suck, it's going to be a lot of the same. But I have found the responsive ads, the challenge that it brings to the table, I do find it motivating to really kind of think about what's some ad copy that would differentiate this advertiser and speak directly to the core emotional need of that advertiser. So how to improve your ad copy? Well, improving it, improve it. Talk to your customers, talk to your business owner, talk to your boss, whoever. Try different stuff. Now, there are a couple things that I have been experimenting with, Chris. I've been trying some themed responsive ads. One theme could talk about pricing and stuff like that. Another theme could talk about like the way the company's established, how long they've been around, all that kind of stuff. So that's a thing. And that's something I've recently been experimenting with. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm tempted to do it. It sounds like a bad thing, but treating responsive ads like expanded text ads in the sense that, oh, you're giving me 12 or 15 headlines. I'll take 3, thanks. And you're giving me 4 descriptions. I'll take 2. I'll just take 2. Yeah. And you don't do a full-blown responsive ad fully with all the data. You can just put in enough to get it to save and run. And then that allows you to better test ad copy because it's cleaner. You can put separate ad copy in another ad and treat it like an expanded text ad. I don't know if that's a horrible idea because it might be treating responsive ads the wrong way, and the system might be offended and go, oh, you didn't give us enough data to optimize with and blah, blah, blah. We're not going to show you as often as we could. I'm totally open to that being a thing, but it's something I'm thinking about. I don't know. It's an option.
Yeah.
But
yeah. at this point, we're all still learning, and it's very difficult to know exactly what works. And I think that's honestly on purpose. Google could give us more, but they don't. So we have to work with what we have.
They're probably seeing a lot of things with responsive ads, like their computers and their people are seeing a lot of things because responsive ads are so open to how you want to go about it. They're probably just getting thrown a lot of different stuff, and I'm sure they're still learning as well. And maybe once they figure out what works best for them and their search users and the advertisers, just win. Maybe they'll give us more input into the responsive ads and more things to create. That is the ad copy portion of how to increase your click-through rate inside of Google Ads. What about the keywords, Chris? Do you look at keywords that are causing you a low click-through rate and go, oh, that one must suck, I'm going to pause it? How do you approach keywords when it comes to click-through rate?
Yeah, good question. For me, it is the same situation as conversions. I do not take action if a keyword is low CTR by itself. It's if it's like a 0.5 CTR for that one keyword, all it does is throw up a red flag and say, hey, I need attention. Take a look at me. There's something to be concerned about here. And it's certainly not going to be something I pay attention to if it just has one click or something like that and just a few impressions. If it has like 4,000 impressions and just a few clicks, absolutely, because that has had plenty of time to get some clicks and it isn't. So it's definitely a volume thing, but I do not pause them. First, I investigate. Look at the search terms. Consider
the conversions. Yeah.
One thing I might do is pull that keyword into google.com and do a search and say, what's showing up when I do this search? I mean, am I surprised by what's showing up? What other competitors are showing up? Are they doing the same thing that my client does? Is this relevant at all? And then after multiple factors, okay, pause this. This is no good. Let's pause it. It's had plenty of time. It's not relevant. People aren't responding well to it. The ad copy is on target, but it's still not doing good. Gone. So absolutely, the answer is yes, I do pause. But the real answer is after investigation.
So it's like a yellow flag saying, look at me, look at this keyword. I might be underperforming your account.
Yep.
And I might be causing problems, and I might be worth pausing. A lot of times, if you have a low click-through rate keyword that's causing your campaign to be low click-through rate, oftentimes, yes, Chris, like you're saying, you can sort by impressions. It is the highest one of the highest impression keywords. And then on top of that, maybe it's some kind of weird 1 or 2 word, very open phrase match keyword that's bringing in a lot of stuff. Think about a moving company campaign. Maybe someone threw in the word moving phrase match, and it's like, not going to bring in good searches. And the way you can kind of be alerted to that is go, oh yeah, why does this one have a 0.1% click-through rate when everything else in the account has a 4 or 5%? Let me see if it's quality. It's not. And then you can pause it. And then in some cases, maybe something is working, and you can judge it with the conversion data. But we'll put it this way. There definitely are scenarios where just pausing 1 or 2 keywords out of 50 or 60 can totally get you a higher click-through rate on your campaign.
Oh, absolutely.
That scenario definitely does happen.
You drop 4,000 impressions off of your account in one day, you're going to see that search impression share skyrocket, and you're going to see the CTR skyrocket. Absolutely.
Yep.
And that answers, and that brings us to the next thing.
Yeah, just before that, I just want to throw out, we already talked about bidding, and we did a section on that. But, if you want to get your click-through rate up, one way is to bid more, at least think about things that way.
Being higher in search results.
I think, Chris, a good thing to think about there is top percentage, not absolute top percentage, but top percentage. If you're just not showing above organic a lot of the time, you're going to have a horrible click-through rate. And if you want to spend more of your budget, get your click-through rate up to a normal level, maybe you've got to get that top percentage rate up above a super low 10% or super low 20%, get it to 30, 40, 50, 60. And then your click-through rate might actually go from like 0.2% to something like 2.5%, just because it's such a big difference to show up above organic. And if you can increase the amount of time you're doing that, your click-through rate should jump. But Chris, one final thing when talking about how to improve your click-through rate. I really don't know if this is a valid one or not, but do you think negative keywords can help raise your click-through rate in Google Ads?
Absolutely. I feel like that's a trick question. I feel like we're playing softball here, right? Because I mean,
Well, it's one of those things where I'm not, like we're saying, I'm not thinking about click-through rate when I go and add a bunch of great negative keywords, but it does. It probably has that effect, I would think.
I mean, okay, so let's think about it this way. There's actually two sides to this. Let's say I go into an account and I see a 25% click-through rate, okay? Suspiciously high.
Yeah.
Negative keywords can improve that because what I find is a whole bunch of the spend is competitor searches. They're looking for a different competitor, a different product, a different company, and I actually add negative keywords and it brings down the click-through rate because I don't want people clicking on my ad thinking I'm a competitor. Right. Okay. The other way is I have some broad keywords. I have some junk keywords in there that are bringing in lots of things around free services and research traffic and just overall junk traffic. I add in negative keywords and it brings the click-through rate up because my impressions go down and I'm no longer getting, mobile phone app for, how to fix a toilet. That's the kind of stuff I'm getting. It's just absolute junk. I want plumbing leads and that's what I want, not this other research junk. So both situations improve the campaign, but they have different results with the negative keywords. One brings the CTR down and one brings it up, but that's good in both instances.
Yeah, and on those I don't know about one word, but 2-word kind of phrase match open keywords that you might be running, maybe there is something to like maybe 10 to 30 really good negative keywords can block out a ton of garbage, and then your click-through rate can come up to a decent level, and then your cost per lead can be good enough from that high volume one to get the benefit of running on a very high volume keyword. So negative keywords can be very beneficial. And then I guess one side effect of them, a good side effect, is they can increase your click-through rate because you're just not showing up on as much junk. Or like you're saying, Chris, you can block a lot of stuff that gets a high click-through rate but isn't relevant to your business. And Chris, I really like the way you brought hey, it's not just all about a high click-through rate. It's also getting it higher. It's also about getting it to a high-performing level, which sometimes maybe is lower if you're getting a lot of irrelevant clicks. It's a great way to think about it. And if people want more of that thinking, where can they reach you?
You can go to chrisschaefer.com. The link is in the description. Hey, you want to work with me? Probably one of the best ways to work with me is to pay for an hour of tapping into my brain. My brain is a high-priced item, and it's worth it, though. I guarantee I can provide a huge amount of information, and tell you what, it might even start with a free video audit of your account. I can provide a free video audit. Reach out to me. Maybe I can do that for you and prove that it's worth an hour of your time.
Thanks, Chris. And I'm at rothmanppc.com for Google Ads consulting and management. And I pride myself on being able to come up with solutions for both small advertisers, $500, $1,000 a month, and also large advertisers spending tens of thousands or more per month. I can do it all, and I can do it for you. Chris, I'm going to do it with you next week on the next episode of the Paid Search Podcast. And I'll do it with you at that point in time. See you then.
Okay.